to be a look back at year one, reflections on what we've accomplished, and then our goals for the coming year. So just a really quick overview about how we formed the network and tried to establish the cohesion and collaboration that was in our work plan. So we set up a mission statement. You all remember going through that, I'm sure, or choosing a name. Remember when we couldn't even agree on a name in the first month? We've also delved into tenets of engagement that we finalized in the last 6 months. We set up a website that started at the very beginning, and that website is constantly being updated with content. We have contact lists that we put together for various outreach purposes, and those things just keep evolving. So that's an ongoing process. We subawarded 14 subawards very early on at the beginning of the year. At about 4 months, we set up the pre-approved consultant pool, and we included 17 consultants in that consultant pool that we have already started to use for the call for participants projects, which brings me to the call for participants process, which we started at around 6 months. Excuse me for my phone, it's a survey coming in again. We also have an on-call technical assistance that is ongoing, and we occasionally get requests for assistance from random communities, which is the reason why we set that up, because we want to capture all the communities in the SNEP area that have any concerns or questions or needs. Okay, so in year one, we implemented some projects early on. Such as the STUMAP and the stormwater retrofit manual. Those two products, the work started right away, and same for the pilot projects. The Maidford River pilot project started right away at the beginning of the year. The Taunton River really started later in the year, and that is now all set to be implemented in year two. We also did community assistance in year one, starting at around 6 months, where we had the call for participants requests go out, and we went through the process of choosing 12 communities to award assistance to. At this point, we have 12 memorandum of agreements with those 12 communities. We also have 8 contracts with over $347,000 encumbered for consultant pool services. We also implemented training and leadership development. The leadership exchange actually started even before we started our fiscal year one on September 25th, 2019. And we're continuing that into the last 6 months and also the year ahead of us. We had to go to virtual trainings when COVID hit us in March, and we, I think, did a really great job transitioning to webinars, and I'll cover that later on in my presentation. And of course, the on-call assistance is always an ongoing process. So here, I just want to give a little detail about 2 network products that are being worked on, one by this UNH Stormwater Center and the Stormwater Retrofit Manual. An advisory committee was formed at the very beginning of year one. And besides the working on the Stormwater Manual, the UNH Stormwater Center also does additional technical assistance and also works in 4 of the call for participant communities. The Stewardship Mapping Project by the Brown University and the Rhode Island School of Design started right away, like I said. And on September 16th, there was a virtual survey launch. I hope some of you attended that. That was really fabulous, where to get ready for that meeting, over 500 tribes, organizations, and environmental groups were identified for that database. And they also formed a core team of what they call grass tops, representatives from tribes, and organizations in the region to give feedback on how the STU map is going to be implemented. Whoops. Okay, so this is by the numbers for year one. This is trainings delivered in year one. We only had 2 in-person trainings before COVID hit. We were right about to give another finance workshop event, launch another finance workshop event, literally the week that we were all told that things got shut down. So we reimagined how we can deliver services and switched to a webinar series. Here are the in-person trainings, and then here are a list of all the webinars that we delivered. 2 green stormwater infrastructure webinars in year one. We just had another one last Friday, but that counts as year 2, so I didn't add that. 4 additional webinars from the University of Rhode Island, Mass Audubon, and the Nature Conservancy. Then there was a 4-part webinar series called COVID-19 Preparedness and Recovery. Total attendees were over 600 people, 60% attendance rate, which is quite good for webinars. And we have 10 webinars completed in year one. This is a map of the distribution of our call for participants communities, as well as our pilot projects. So you can see it's a pretty great wide distribution geographically. And not only geographically, but also in terms of topic covered, which I'm going to go over a little bit next. Topics range from very complex assistance to pretty simple assistance. And so I chose these 2 communities to focus on, Warren being an example of a more straightforward assistance approach. It's really a facilitated planning to evaluate green infrastructure and nature-based solutions for flooding, including things like disconnecting impervious surfaces, creating additional storage for runoff, and increasing the capacity of existing structures. There's a modeling involved, and then a report. And the partners on that are the Stormwater Center, Save the Bay, and Elizabeth Scott. So that is a really, it's a great need, but it's very sort of straightforward, as opposed to the Pleasant Bay Alliance Call for Participants project, which is more complex. It's planning among a number of communities, and it also includes science, as well as trying to figure out the financing options. And so we have more partners working on that. We've got TNC, Throw Environmental, the Stormwater Center, Cape Cod Commission, and Mass Audubon. And I only pulled these out to demonstrate the point that these are 2 out of 12 projects. And I think the real value of these projects is not just that they are helping communities get to the next level, but also because of the combination of partners that work on each of these projects vary, so that if you multiply that 12 times, there's a really great opportunity to do peer-to-peer exchange between the SNEP communities. And also, you know, partners get to know each other's work, they get to know each other's skills, and they get to leverage all that this year, and when we look forward to our call for participants process in year 2. And now I would just want to focus a little bit on the 2 pilot projects. There's the Madeford River pilot project that is well on its way. The important thing that I take away from the Madeford River project is that it's not only a restoration project for floodplain restoration, which is the science. It also has this social science component where there needs to, you know, they're working on like almost like a paradigm change with how the private landowners think about their property for the good of the community. So it's got the science and the social science part of it, and that's going to continue into year 2 when they continue outreach to the property owners, about restoring the riparian buffers, and also the design and the engineering piece. The Taunton River pilot just really got wrapped up in the last couple of months. There were 25 candidates for a pilot project in the Taunton area, and we landed on the Canoe River Aquifer project, which is a water quality and a water quantity project all in one. It's going to be a test of nature-based solutions, also outreach and figuring out, local capacity and collaboration on these very applied projects. So looking forward to that in year 2. I know I didn't do justice to that description, but you can ask questions in the Q&A session, and Kim Groff will be able to answer, and so will Danica about, and Sarah Burns about that project. So looking ahead to year 2, I just want to go a little bit quicker because I think I'm over my time. We're going to continue network cohesion. The one thing that we're adding this year is a lot more team-based approaches, expanding the network, which we've done with 2 new partners, and then an increasing emphasis on environmental justice and equity topics, which everybody that we surveyed, I'll talk about that later, really identified that as a real need to address in year 2. We're also going to leverage regional partnerships and resources, building shared capacity between the network and other coalitions that we are daily making connections with. We're going to advance stormwater and watershed management practices by implementing the 12 Call for Participants projects. The leadership exchange and training is well on its way in year 2. I'm going to cover that in a minute. And then the peer-to-peer learning opportunities, like I described from the Call for Participants projects, is really great here. So we also intend to, about 6 years into year 2, do a second round of Call for Participants to identify work for fiscal year 2. So just a quick glance at the leadership exchange that's been going on. The first leadership exchange event happened about a week ago. The time just like blurs in my brain right now, but I just want to describe how these sessions are going to be unrolled. So first, participants get a podcast, and the podcast is put together by Joanne and her team, and it's really a rundown of what communities outside of the SNEP community are doing in order to bring those practices to light in our communities. So this one is geared to Wareham, and it's a result of the Call for Participants project for Wareham. And Wareham is focused on green infrastructure, economic resilience, redevelopment, and smart growth and zoning strategies. First, when the event happens, there's a closed meeting with just the town of Wareham, which actually we're opening it up to other communities now. And then there's an open to the public webinar following it. So 4 of these sessions will happen. 1 has already happened. 1 is coming up next week. And I think they've been a real success. And Joanne can speak more to this in the Q&A following my presentation. There's also another training event that we're launching is the Association of Climate Change Officers are holding 4 events. 1 has already happened, 1 is happening tomorrow, and it's something that you can tune into, and Joanne can speak to more of this in the Q&A session. I know I didn't do justice to that either. And I don't know if you can see, but the planned webinars for this year are between 12 and 15 webinars. Almost every partner stepped up in their scope of work and said they would like to do a webinar this year. So we've got plenty of webinars in our future for year 2. Oh, and that's it. So I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to open it up to questions so I can see hands.